This is Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. I think today we'll do some mixing grays. And I found an interesting picture of a puddle with some trees. And I thought that'd be a great exercise to show you how I mix grays and also how I get the puddles reflecting those trees realistically. So let's go over to my painting table and let's get started. This is a picture of the photograph I'm using as a reference and my sketch pad to do the painting on. I'm going to mix up a gray color using a 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm mixing the burnt sienna with ultramarine blue. That makes a nice gray color. Now on the sketch that I've sketched out on the watercolor pad, I'm going to paint around that design with that gray color. I pick up colors from the palette to fill the brush and continue on with the gray color around the edges of the puddle. Cover the foreground, moving back into the background using the same color. I'm going to paint around the puddles. There's actually two puddles, a smaller puddle in the back and a larger puddle in the front. Let's speed up the process here to move along and show the painting at this point, blocking in the gray color. I'm painting around. I'll paint around the trees, shapes. Now while the painting is still wet, I'm going to pick up my palette in a bottle, my dot spray with burnt sienna, and I'm going to spray some, lightly tapping the top, spray some brown dots. Those will simulate leaves and stuff on the ground. Then I'll pick up the dot spray with just water, and I spray that. That spreads those dots out into shapes that looks like leaves or debris on the ground for a little variation of color and shapes and value. And now it's dried out. I'm going to add a darker color. I'm going to use the 1/2 inch flat brush. Again, the same colors, burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. Going to make a dark brown. I'll start working on the tree reflection in the puddle. This one tree on the right is reflecting into the puddle, picking up the dark brown color from the palette with a 1/2 inch flat brush. Using the corner of the brush, the side of the brush, to fill in the space. Careful to go along the edge of the puddle to make it look more realistic of the shape. A nice fine edge with that flat brush. Now move up to the actual tree, which is above the puddle, the reflection into the puddle. This is the tree that's causing a reflection. Use the same color combination. Again, using the side of the brush, the corner of the brush, the end of the brush, I'll continue on now with the other trees. We'll speed up the motion a little bit so we can get through this motion, this part of the painting. I like the variety of different shapes of these trees, the reflections in the puddle, different sizes, different spaces between the trees. So I'm aware of all this as I'm painting along. Each tree has a different shape, a different length, a different size, a different kind of reflection. Okay, now I'm going to introduce a natural sponge, and I'm going to mix up some leaf colors. Now this is autumn scene, so I'm going to use autumn colors, the oranges, the yellows, and the browns. I'll mix up a nice big puddle because I will use that sponge. I'll make sure I vary the colors here. Get a nice bright color. I want it to be a bright color with oranges and yellows. Now I moisten the sponge, pick up some paint, and go over to the painting. This will be the first light layer using the sponge. I'm just creating a pattern here of where the leaves are in the reflection. The sponge gives me a nice texture look. And now with a round brush, mixed in a little bit of burnt sienna, this is a second layer, a darker layer. Here I'm making texture of leaves with the brush stroke. Now with the flat brush, the 1/2 inch flat brush, I'm mixing even a darker layer. I want to get a darker value of those leaves, so I'm mixing a darker color. Of the same colors but a little bit darker, a little more pigment. Moving the brush around, again adding more shapes and texture to those leaves and the reflection. Now I want to work on the puddle area. I'm going to define the edges of the puddle, where little shadows, a little more definition. And again, I'm using my own interpretation here of what I see, but I want to define the edges a little bit better, so I'll make it a little bit darker along the edge of the puddle. I don't cover every part, I'm going to do dots and dashes, hit little places just to highlight some of the little dark areas. Now I'm going to add some shadows here to the trees to give them a little dimension, to show a little depth in the painting. Shadows coming from the light hitting the trees, hitting the ground. Here I'm working on different sizes, different lengths. little different shapes. Again, shadows give interesting shapes to the painting. Some places darker, some places are lighter. Some are longer, some are shorter. Now I'm going to add in some dark areas, what I call the final touches, which is a little more shadow into that puddle. I see some dark places that I want to add in the extra color, especially back here. Now this smaller puddle in the back, I'm going to add, I'm thinking of 2/3 of that puddle being in dark. So I'm using 2/3 of that space to add a dark value. Leaving some of the lighter colors. 1/3 light, 2/3 dark. Up here in the larger front puddle, I'm going to cover 1/3 darker and leave the 2/3 lighter as it is. Again, variation in the values added to each area. Also adding a little more texture to those leaves in the puddle reflection. Well, there's the final painting. It's a good exercise in learning how to draw reflections in a puddle. I like the way it worked out. Puddles. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell to be notified of my next video. And give me a like. See you in the next video.